Have you ever walked through a cemetery after midnight? Most people are afraid of ghosts. But after hearing my story, you'll realize the dead aren't always the ones you should fear. Everything I'm about to tell you happened 8 years ago in a small town in northern Pennsylvania. I was 26 years old and worked the night shift for a private security company. My job was simple: patrol properties that had been vandalized before. One Friday evening, my boss called and said an old cemetery outside town had been broken into 3 nights in a row. Several headstones had been knocked over, flowers had disappeared, and someone reported hearing voices coming from the cemetery long after it closed. The police searched the grounds twice, but found nothing, so they hired me. At first, I laughed. Who needs security for a cemetery? The dead aren't going anywhere. Looking back, I wish I'd refused. The cemetery sat on a lonely hill, surrounded by thick pine trees. It had been there since the late 1800s. Hundreds of weathered graves stretched across the hill. Many names had faded so badly they were impossible to read. An old iron gate marked the entrance. The caretaker, an elderly man named Walter, handed me the keys. Before leaving, he looked unusually nervous. "You can patrol wherever you want," he said. "But whatever happens, don't stay near Section D after 1 in the morning." I smiled. "Why?" Walter stared toward the hill. "They buried someone there who never stayed buried." Then he got into his truck and drove away. I assumed he was trying to scare the new guy. At exactly 11 p.m., I started my patrol. The air was cold, despite it being early autumn. Every few minutes, leaves rustled, even though there wasn't any wind. Around midnight, I noticed something strange. Fresh footprints crossed the muddy path. Bare footprints. No shoes. They led directly toward Section D. I followed them. The prints suddenly stopped in front of a cracked marble headstone. There were no footprints leading away. It was as if whoever made them had simply vanished. At 12:47 a.m., my radio emitted loud static. Then a woman's whisper came through. "Help me." I checked every frequency. Nothing. Nothing. Only static. Then silence. A minute later, my flashlight flickered. Its batteries had been brand new. When the light finally stabilized, I wasn't alone. Someone stood between the graves nearly 50 yards away, a tall figure wearing black clothing. I called out. No answer. The figure slowly disappeared behind a monument. I ran after it. Nobody was there. The cemetery was completely empty. Or so I thought. As I turned around, I heard dirt moving. Not footsteps. Digging. The sound came from somewhere behind me. Slow, steady, like someone shoveling earth. I followed the noise until I reached an old grave surrounded by dead trees. The digging stopped. There wasn't a shovel. There wasn't anyone nearby. Only a mound of freshly disturbed soil. The name on the headstone read, Emily Harper, born 1918, died 1946. Someone had placed fresh white roses on the grave. Oddly, they weren't there earlier. I took a photograph for my report. When I checked the picture, the roses weren't visible, only the headstone. I convinced myself it had to be some strange camera issue. Then my phone buzzed. No signal. Yet somehow, I had received a voicemail. The timestamp showed. Hands shaking, I played it. At first there was silence. Then a terrified woman whispered, "He's still here." The recording ended with loud scraping sounds. Then screaming. My phone instantly shut off. At exactly 1 a.m., the church bell in town rang 13 times. There were only 12 bells. Every bird in the surrounding forest suddenly went silent. Even the insects stopped making noise. The cemetery became completely still. Too still. That's when I remembered Walter's warning. Don't stay near Section D after 1. I was standing in Section D. Something moved behind me. I spun around. A little girl stood near one of the graves. She couldn't have been older than 8. She wore an old white dress covered in dirt. Her hair hid most of her face. I called out, "Sweetheart, where are your parents?" She slowly raised one hand, pointing toward the trees. Then she whispered, "He's digging again." I looked toward the forest for only 2 seconds. When I turned back, she was gone. No footprints. Nothing. Nothing. Just silence. Then the digging started again. Only this time, it came from beneath my feet. The ground vibrated. Tiny cracks spread across the soil. Without thinking, I backed away. The dirt continued shifting for several seconds. Before becoming still, I called the police. No answer. Every call failed. My radio blasted static again. This time, a man's voice came through. "You shouldn't be here." Then the radio died permanently. The clouds covered the moon. Darkness swallowed the cemetery. Only my flashlight remained. As I walked back toward the entrance, I noticed every single grave had fresh flowers. Earlier, most had been empty. Now hundreds of bouquets rested across the cemetery. None of them looked old. They looked newly placed, as if someone had visited every grave within minutes. Halfway to the gate, I heard footsteps behind me. Crunch, 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 perfectly matching my pace. Whenever I stopped, they stopped. Whenever I walked, they followed. I turned around. Nothing. Only endless rows of graves. Then I noticed one thing that froze me. There was only one set of footprints behind me. Mine. Yet I could still hear someone walking. Closer, 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 until the footsteps stopped. Right behind my shoulder. Warm breath touched my ear. A voice whispered, "Don't look." I looked anyway. No one stood there, but something else had changed. The grave directly beside me had no date of death anymore. Instead, the stone simply read my full name. Below it, the death date was blank. I stared at it in disbelief. Then, numbers slowly began appearing. 1 by 1. The date changed to that night. I ran. Branches slapped against my face as I sprinted toward the gate. The footsteps chased me the entire way. I reached the entrance, only to find the iron gate locked. Impossible. I'd left it open. Behind me, the footsteps stopped. I turned around. A man stood roughly 60 feet away. He wore filthy funeral clothes. His face looked unnaturally pale. His mouth hung open far wider than any human should. He wasn't walking. He was gliding, slowly, silently, toward me. I climbed the gate, dropping onto the road outside. The instant my feet hit the pavement, the figure stopped. It remained inside the cemetery, watching. Then it smiled. Its jaw stretched lower, until it split open. I ran to my truck without looking back. The next morning I returned with 2 police officers. Everything looked normal. No fresh flowers, no disturbed soil, no strange footprints. The grave with my name didn't exist. Walter listened quietly as I described everything. When I finished, he sighed. I was hoping he wouldn't choose you. I asked what he meant. Walter told me that in 1946, a cemetery groundskeeper named Thomas Mercer murdered several people and buried them in unmarked graves inside Section D. When police finally caught him, he laughed and said, "I'll keep digging long after I'm dead." He was buried in the same cemetery, exactly where I'd heard the digging. Years later, workers tried moving his body. The coffin was empty. I quit that security job the same day. I never went back, but every October, without fail, I received the same voicemail. No caller, no signal, always time-stamped. Every message begins with silence. Then a woman whispers the same 5 words. He's digging and getting closer. I don't listen to the rest anymore, because the last time I did, I heard something I had never noticed before. Footsteps coming from behind the person holding the phone. Slow, heavy, dragging through loose dirt. And just before the recording ends, a man's voice quietly says, "You're next." If you ever find yourself alone in an old cemetery after midnight, and you hear digging, don't investigate. Just leave, because some graves were never meant to stay closed. The end. Subscribe Ghost Fair YouTube channel.